Kochetkov in Winnipeg. A minute 36 here into the third. Now Chatfield has to get to it. Way out of the net comes Kochetkov, and they'll score. He poked it away, but right to Monahan. And Sean Monahan into the empty net. And it's a 4-3 lead for Winnipeg with 3:13 left.
Oh, boy. Tough third period, right? Welcome to the Canes Corner podcast. I am Adam Gold. Thank you so much for spending the rest of your Saturday afternoon with us. I'm not going to speak like for everybody. I don't think that we have our friends in Australia with us, do we? I mean, it's kind of the middle of the night, early to super early in the morning in Adelaide or Perth. So I don't even know, are our friends in Hawaii even awake? Or Alaska, are they even awake? Anyway, thank you very much for hanging out. And it was obviously a difficult loss for Carolina, 5-3. We're going to get to that. We're going to try to sort through it. And you know me, you can always hit me up on Twitter at @AGoldFan. I'm happy to engage. What I don't know, maybe it's probably my fault, to be honest. I do not take well to silly hot takes after a tough loss. So don't be angry, man, on Twitter and tweet it to me and think that I'm just going to go, yeah, you're right. Because more often than not, you're just angry, which is understandable. So I think what we're going to start here, we'll do hashtag, all right? So this will be for us, for all of us here in the Hurricanes fan community. We're going to do hashtag angry Canes tweet that doesn't mean anything. Because if your hot takes after the game were, we'll never win anything with Kochetkov, which we don't know, especially since he's been spectacular for basically 2.5 months. Or Brett Pesce's terrible, or any of these silly things. My favorite one was, here's another lazy third period by Carolina, as though that's the norm. Like, don't angry tweet. You type it out and then delete it. Don't hit send. What happened tonight or today, somebody corrected me. I fall prey to the same thing all players do, right? Every game is a night game, except when it's a day game, and now we're all conditioned to say tonight. The truth of the matter is that the game unraveled on the Kyle Connor goal. And much like Carolina's game in Calgary, do you remember the game in Calgary? Carolina didn't play badly in that game. Had a 2-0 lead going to the third period, and then Kochetkov allowed a really bad goal. Actually, more than one, but that happened today. Allowing the Kyle Connor goal, and I said it on Twitter, Pyotr's going to have to bounce back from this. You have to put this one behind you, Pyotr. I don't think he did. And sometimes when your goalie is exhibiting uncertainties, the team in front of him can't bail him out. And tonight was one of those times. And it happened quickly. 5 minutes and 40 seconds of the third period, the lead was gone. And if you consider that Carolina actually had the first scoring chance of the period, I think, didn't go. But if you think about the fact that the first goal, the Connor goal, didn't come to a little bit more than a minute and a half in, that whole thing happened in about a 4-minute span. So Carolina spent too much time in the penalty box. And unfortunately, when we got to the third period, I thought Kochetkov had played 2 very good periods. And Corey Lavalette and I were sitting in here during the second intermission, and he joined me on the network, and we were talking about how solid he had been and how he was reading the play so well. And I don't know if he would admit it, and I certainly don't think the players would admit it, but Rod said it. That third period was not good from Kochetkov. Doesn't mean he's not a good enough goalie to win in the playoffs. It just meant that in the third period, he was not good. The first goal can't go. No chance the first goal can go. And that was just not being ready. It wasn't even that good a shot. I listened to the Winnipeg call of that, and they were like, maybe a changeup? No, just a bad goal. Quick release, but didn't have a ton on it. If your stick's on the ice in front of you, it's not a goal. Whether you could have your eyes closed, it went straight through the 5-hole, right along the ice, and it's all of a sudden it's 3-1, and it was such a bad goal that I think Kochetkov couldn't help but be kind of unnerved by it. And the second goal, and then I said on Twitter, because I have no time for stupid hot takes, none. I said on Twitter that it really was a series of unfortunate breaks, and the goal that can't go kind of set everybody back. But on the goal that made it 3-2, the Niederreiter goal, Pesce caught up ice, lost his stick. He couldn't get back in time. There might have been time for Pesce to get back, but he didn't have a stick. So he has to stop at the bench to get it. Bob Gorman didn't know that Pesce needed a stick, so he had to scramble to go find one. So Pesce's way behind the play. Nobody got back to cover for it. Niederreiter is all alone, but honestly, Kochetkov bit on the first fake, and he was so far out of position it made it easy. That's 3-2. Then Carolina takes the penalty. Right? Was that Bunting for the high stick? I think it was Bunting. Offensive zone penalty, right? Can't do that. Carolina does that too many times. And some of the calls are garbage. Just absolute garbage. I thought the call on Martinook in the first period was a terrible call. Martinook didn't trip anybody. Was his stick in the way? Yeah. But who was it? Neil Pionk? Basically tried to jump over the stick. And he just fell. But there wasn't a trip. Just like the guy didn't trip Kotkaniemi. That's a terrible. That might be the worst call I've seen. The one where Kotkaniemi, air quotes, because you can see me on YouTube, drew the penalty. I mean, Kotkaniemi had lost an edge. He was going down anyway. And the stick was behind him. The stick didn't even get in his way. It's a terrible call. Carolina didn't score on that power play. So, Pesce's behind the play. That's the goal to make it 3-2. The power play goal, two things happened. One, Burns had the first try, first chance to get it out, didn't. Jarvis collected the puck behind the net. I think he was trying to pass it to Staal across the ice. That wasn't a good pass. And then it was in between all four Carolina Hurricanes. They couldn't get a stick to it. And I forget who it was that pushed it up to Scheifele, who was behind the play, who was behind Carolina's defense. Kochetkov tried to poke check. Scheifele wasn't going for it. Just pulled the puck back and then went around and scored easily. So that's another case where Kochetkov is better off just playing it straight. And I think this is also a case where he was probably he was still dealing with the mood change from the first goal. And he really didn't recover. He actually settled in the rest of the period. But even then, I thought he was a little bit shakier on the puck than he would have otherwise been. And then the fourth goal, which you heard there, the Monahan goal, Chatfield's probably not getting back for the play. But Kochetkov doesn't have to come out. You got to trust yourself, man. Sometimes you're just going to have to deal with the shot. But he did get to the puck. So I'm not going to bang him too much for it. He got to it. he just couldn't get it past Monahan, who was trailing the play. And when Monahan had the puck on his stick, there was only Jalen Chatfield to beat. Chatfield made a valiant effort to try to get to the goal, but he couldn't. And then it's 4-3, and Carolina didn't do much with the extra attacker. 2 minutes and 40 seconds of empty net. Eventually, Nino Niederreiter. Good for him. We all love Nino. So if somebody's going to get two, might as well be him. So that to me, that's the game in a nutshell, right? You have a 3-0 lead. Don't sit here whining about another Hurricanes bad third period. Unfortunately, they got let down by the goalie tonight. And the team will never say it because they shouldn't. But Kochetkov knows, and the head coach said it. Said he had a tough night. He had a tough third period. That's really what it was. That's really what it was. It was a bad third period from the goalie because the first goal rattled him. And like I did, honestly, were there mistakes on the other goals? Yeah, there were. Maybe Pesce shouldn't have pinched, right? Then he doesn't lose his stick if he comes back. But he got to the puck. And another set of circumstances, the play is stopped there. And then we're going, wow, what a pinch. It was a risk. Risk didn't pay off. Maybe at 3-1, with your goalie having just given up a terrible goal, maybe the better play is to just retreat and play defense. I'm not arguing that. But at the same time, you want to maintain your aggressiveness. So, I mean, we could be here all day doing this. The third goal, again, why are you taking an offensive zone penalty? I mean, Michael Bunting wasn't really egregious. The shaft of his stick came up and got the helmet of whoever the player was. I think it was Sandberg. But, again, unfortunate break there for Carolina. I mean, your own fault. Don't take an offensive zone penalty. Then you can't kill it. But look how many things had to happen wrong for Carolina to give up the goal. Burns has it, kind of whiffed on a clear. Jarvis makes a bad pass. And then Staal, Burns, Slavin, and Jarvis can't get to the puck, and it's pushed ahead. And then it's Scheifele. Now it's 3-3. Meanwhile, Carolina got their own power play. And while it was also a bit of good fortune, puck's on Jack Drury's stick in the dead slot, and Connor Hellebuck makes one of two just incredible saves. And I would think this one is a little bit more good fortune because Drury basically hit him in the glove. If Jack elevates that shot 6 more inches, it's 4-3 Carolina. And then maybe Carolina takes it to the house, and we're not even thinking about this other than what the heck was going on for 5 minutes. So no need to hot take it up. That's my point. And if you disagree, that's fair. But disagree all you want. And I guess, and again, I do think we need a hashtag. Paul from Dublin. Yeah, it's not that late, man. It's 9:00. You're not even at the pub yet. Have a Guinness for me. Shouts to Paul. Where did that third period come from? Unfortunately, I think we've been through it. Samuel, when is enough with Kotkaniemi? He hasn't had a good year, to say the least. Look, not to beat him up, he's actually had good moments the last handful of games, but somebody who, with his pedigree, playing on a fourth line with good players, it's not like Jesperi Kotkaniemi, Steph Nason, and Jesper Fast shouldn't have a positive impact on the game. Unfortunately, Kotkaniemi is playing with zero confidence, and it shows. He also doesn't play a ton, so it's not easy to have low confidence when you don't play a lot. But he has to earn that time. He lost his job to Jack Drury. Drury is, at this point, a much better player. Not to pat myself on the back. I could strain a rotator cuff, but I did say a couple of years ago that I think Drury would be a better player than Kotkaniemi. I'm not sure Drury is where he's supposed to be, centering Carolina's second scoring line. I've talked about this. I think Carolina needs an upgrade But also Carolina doesn't have roster room to do anything with Kotkaniemi. They just don't. I mean, I think it leaves us all kind of at a loss. But they're not going to buy out 6 years remaining on a contract. This organization is not going to sit around with 12 years of a cap hit. Even if it's just 4.8 times minus to 2.4, it's actually 60. It's 2/3 of 4.8, which is what, 3.2, 16.6. Yeah, 3.2 million. Divide by 2, 1.6. They're not playing with $1.6 million less than everybody else for the next dozen years. They didn't buy out Scott Darling. They're not buying out with 1 year. They're not buying out Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Now, we can debate all day long. We don't even have to debate. I agree. And I said at the time, he ain't that good. I would have never given him an 8-year contract. You can make the argument that's why Vincent Trocheck isn't here, because they decided that Kotkaniemi was going to be their second center. And they made, again, team can call me on it if they want. I was accused of being Don Waddell's mouthpiece today on Twitter. That's funny. Team can call me on it if they want, but I believe that contract was agreed to well before it was signed, months before it was signed, if not at the time of the offer sheet, because there was nothing in that year that screamed, we got to have this guy for 8 years. Nothing in that year. That doesn't mean he wasn't good, but there was nothing in that contract, in that season, that screamed, this is our guy. Except you were hoping. Except you were trying to prove to everybody that you had galaxy brained a way to steal a second center. Because honestly, that's what Carolina is missing right now, a number 2 center on a scoring line. So we could argue that Jordan Staal is their number 2 center, and he probably is. But in your scoring lines, Jack Drury is the number 2 center. To me, he's out of place there. Although that line has been great. I don't think it wasn't as great today, but that line has been great. So the Kotkaniemi thing, there's no way out of it. You're going to have to find a team that still finds value in him, because there is value in that contract if he improves. If he doesn't improve, it's an albatross. It's a $4.8 million hit on somebody who's a fourth-line center, doesn't play like a fourth-line center, and you're just hoping. All you're doing is hoping at this point. But if the Hurricanes can find themselves an upgrade at that position, what's going to happen is that Kotkaniemi will be a healthy scratch, which doesn't do anything for his value, his trade value, nothing for his trade value. So that's it's unfortunate, but that's where he is. It's not like he's in a rough patch. It's about 40 games of bad hockey. It's not even bad hockey. It's 40 games of unimpactful hockey. And I'll just go back to this point. I've made this point so many times. One of the things that has held Carolina back, yes, the star players, the Aho Svechnikovs, who, by the way, I thought that line was outstanding for 40 minutes today. And Carolina was, again, from the 3-3 goal until the Monahan goal, I thought it was an even game. Carolina might have even had a couple of more scoring chances in there. So let's not say they stunk in the third period. They stunk at the beginning of the third period. Let's be honest. And it wasn't so much they stunk as opposed to, man, they just got like rattled by the first goal. But one of the common themes for all of these playoff exits has been the fact that Carolina's third line, because they use the Staal, Martinook, Foss line, especially on home ice, and now Jarvis there, not Foss. They use that line to shut down the other team's top line. Your third and fourth lines should have an advantage. This is the way Carolina is set up. Your third and fourth line should have an advantage, especially on home ice. And last year, the third and fourth lines didn't. But even in previous years, they haven't gotten enough out of it. And in fact, in almost every playoff exit, it has been either the other team's power play or, more specifically, the other team's third lines that have really done the damage. And if you look at the way Carolina is structured now, theoretically, the third line, because you've got the Aho line as 1, the Staal line is 2, the Drury line is 3, with Necas and Bunting, they've done a good job. But for a time, we had Teuvo Teravainen playing with Kotkaniemi and Nason. There is no planet where that line shouldn't take advantage of playing against other teams' fourth lines and third defensive pairs. But Kotkaniemi hasn't been good enough to make good on that. That's the advantage they should have. Because if you look at their forward group, they're pretty balanced. They should be. But they're only balanced if Kotkaniemi plays well. So they need to upgrade that position. I think they're fine everywhere else. I really do. I really do. P.S. This tough loss today. Do you think 52 needs to stay home? Well, yeah. I mean, in certain times he should. And he gets a little crazy with the poke check. But again, I also think that sometimes when he gets rattled, then he starts making poor decisions. And I think the first goal rattled him. I do. I don't. He's bounced back from tough goals before. I mean, you could argue that which goal was the one in Minnesota, the one right before the end of the first period, the floater from the blue line. You could argue that was a bad goal, but he didn't really see it. But he has bounced back from those. He just didn't bounce back from the one tonight. So, that's unfortunate. I mean, it sucks how the whole thing played out, but that's the way it did. Let me get a couple of more items in here, and then we'll blow for the last. I'll give you your Saturday evening back. Hey, Paul probably is going to do karaoke in Dublin. Do you do karaoke in Dublin? I don't know. Top line has been great the last couple of games. I talked to Rob Brindamore before the game today. And it wasn't so much that the goals were great. The goals were both trash that Teravainen and Aho scored, right? But how the goals came about wasn't trash, right? They're probably both bad goals to allow if you're Daniil Tarasov. The Teravainen goal wasn't good. And the Aho goal was deflected off the skate, Andrew Peak's skate, almost right off. It was supposed to be a pass. And somehow it just went all the way through. Just didn't touch anybody until it hit the back of the net. But how the goals happened was the good stuff. Carolina, that line, your top line, getting it on the forecheck and making life difficult for Columbus. You're taking advantage of a bad team, but it doesn't matter. That's the way the Hurricanes are supposed to play. So, and Rod agreed. The process to get those 2 goals was great. And yeah, there were opportunities for that group to score a bunch and just didn't. I still think Andre's fighting his shooting. Wasn't fighting his passing on the power play goal. My gosh, what a great feed for 3-0. That goal should have been enough, but obviously it wasn't. But I think we are seeing the top line kind of hit its stride again. And I talked about it in the last podcast, because we did a little bit on what Carolina needs at the trade deadline. It doesn't matter what they add at the trade deadline if Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen aren't impactful. Basically every game. And we watch it. Like Winnipeg's top line today. I thought Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen were the best line of the night. But for that stretch, man, Winnipeg's top group were pretty awesome. And that's what it's going to be. You're going to have to get great performances and dominating performances at times out of your best three players. And that's what Carolina got the last couple of games. Didn't help them tonight, obviously. But good sign in that Aho, Svechnikov, and Teravainen seem to be going again. All right, so we certainly like that. Martin Necas has certainly looked the part of a very valuable piece, in my opinion. So when Carolina, we have 21 games left in the regular season, and however many playoff games they play. Necas, the current, and I think this is 16 games where he's got 17 points in 16 games since coming back from the injury, something in that area. He's certainly a point a game. This Martin Necas is the Necas that if he repeats anything close to this in the postseason, this is the Necas that you keep. Not the Necas you trade, the Necas you keep. Because there's one thing I firmly believe is true about Necas. I think in his mind, he wants to be great. He wants to be better than he is right now. And I think he has a desire to do that. And because of that, I think he's worth the investment. He's still young. I mean, the dude's 6'3". We have a team that is largely small. There is size, but for the most part, our offensive players run on the little bit of the small side. And Necas isn't. And he's getting physically stronger. He's never going to be somebody who throws his body around. We know that. But if he is willing to take a hit to make a play, which I think we're starting to see more of, if he's willing to play in the middle of the ice, which we're definitely seeing more of, and if he is in a place where he is eliminating why did you do that with the puck, Marty? Like we saw last year a lot, and at times earlier this year, if that part of his game goes away, as my friend Trip Tracy says, now you're cooking with oil, gas, and gravy. So that Necas is one you keep. I just think that too much speed. You saw the wrist shot tonight. He's got a great slap shot, one-timer from the left-hand circle. So, to me, that guy stays. As much as I've been tough on him, but I think we've been tough on him when you're supposed to be. Like, why are you doing that? We see a lot less of that from Necas. And we'll probably see a little bit more of it in the last 21 games because everybody has a rough stretch. But I think we have seen way more good signs than bad from 88. So I'm all about figuring out a way to keep Necas. I've liked Pesce and Skjei the last few games. Maybe even more than the last few games, but they clearly need to continue to trend in this direction. I think Brett has had and maybe it's the contract, because I'll tell you this for a fact. Brett is a hurricane, and I don't know that he won't always feel, no matter where he plays, I don't know that he won't always feel like a hurricane. I don't know what the future is for him and for Brady Skjei, because I think Skjei is going to end up with a contract that's in the neighborhood of $8 million a year, because we know he can play offense, and offensive defensemen get paid. Dougie Hamilton. Pesce doesn't have much offense, but I think Pesce's got a rep around the league as being essentially Jacob Slavin light, and I think you can make an argument about it, where I think Pesce's contract is going to be pretty big and pretty long. And I find it very hard to believe that Tom Dundon's going to go beyond 5 years and beyond $5 million for Brett Pesce. Just my guess. So I think they're looking at 22 and 76 both walking out the door. But while they're here, I mean, they're enormous pieces of this team. Skjei feels to me like a core piece of the group anyway now. He's been here long enough. He's been through it. He's played great here. He was not this player in New York. Whether it's Carolina style or whatnot, he was not this player in New York. There's a reason why the Rangers were getting rid of him. Because you don't give away a puck-moving defenseman with offense like that for a mid-first-round pick. You don't do that. I mean, maybe you do that for a high first-round pick, but not for a mid-first-round pick, because that's what they did. Anyway, there's a lot of decisions coming. I'm kind of going all over the place. I have so many things running through my head. I don't want to get too far ahead because Carolina's got some decisions to make. But Necas is one I would definitely keep, especially as the season wears on and he keeps trending upward. All right, that'll do it for us. Everybody gets about 4 days to just relax. Just relax. I said it a while ago, a few podcasts ago. I don't believe it's realistic to think they're going to catch the Rangers. They can, but today they could have gotten within 3 if the Rangers were to lose in Toronto. But it is way more important to stay ahead of Philadelphia. Get home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs. Philly is 9 back, and Philadelphia, by the way, is home to Ottawa tonight. Probably going to get the 7 back. And right now, by the way, Washington is on their tail. Washington is +6 over NHL 500. Philadelphia is +8. That's becoming a pretty tight one, and the Canes and the Caps will play in the next couple of weeks. So, anyway, that'll do it for us. We are brought to you by the Aluminum Company of North Carolina. If it's for the exterior of your home, you can find it at the Aluminum Company of North Carolina on Hamlin Road in Durham. No place like it. Sammy Hanna and his crew do a great job. You can find everything you want there, like windows and siding and roofing and entry doors and storm doors and gutter helmets. If you don't know what a gutter helmet is, find out about it. AluminumCompany.com. We'll talk to you Thursday night after the Hurricanes and the Montreal Canadiens, and it will be a mere hours before the NHL's trade deadline comes final. 3 o'clock Eastern time on Friday. Ooh, nervous times. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you all for hanging out, and I appreciate everything. As always, don't take anything personally. I don't. Good night.